Episode 25, and this week we look at what's being built on Cardano as well as an interview with Chris Swenor from Reach. Hey, and welcome to the Learn Cardano podcast, the podcast where we break down all the ins and outs of Cardano so that you can become a Plutus pioneer programmer and write your own smart contracts. Well, maybe not to that extent, but I will point you in the right direction. I'm your host, Peter Buey, and this week I have a lineup of all these different projects that are being built on Cardano, as well as an interview with Chris Swenor, who is the CEO and founder of a programming language called Reach and the company behind it. I have him on the show to talk all about how his programming language is blockchain agnostic and allows developers to easily build a smart contract with very little knowledge about the blockchain itself, and then possibly deploy multiple blockchains, but really cut down on the development time that is required and understanding that's required for building on various blockchains, including Ethereum, Algorand, and hopefully in the future, Cardano. So that interview is coming right up. If you're interested in it, just skip ahead to the interview. The links are in the chapters. You can jump straight to it. But first off, let's get into some news. And yes, some really big news. The Lonzo era has arrived. So unless you've been living under a rock, perhaps without internet and not connected to the Cardano community, the Cardano blockchain has finally entered the era of Alonzo, which is the era for smart contracts for Cardano. The recent epoch switch over to EP025 saw the introduction of smart contracts on the Cardano blockchain. It was quite exciting to watch and see the epoch switch over. So this is the switching time, the 5-day period switching from one epoch to another, and watching that switch happen to see the very first few blocks that came into the Cardano ecosystem for the Alonzo era. And luckily, the very first pool that was able to mint a block on the new Alonzo era was Husky Pool. So I think her name's pronounced Caroline Tang. Her pool was lucky enough to mint that very first block. Now, there are also contracts being executed almost immediately within the first 10 minutes. Several smart contracts were being deployed to the Cardano blockchain and executed within the first 10 minutes, including Lars, who led the Plutus Pioneers. He executed a contract for voting for a particular lobster's name. Yep, that's right. In Charles Hoskinson's latest videos, you may have noticed that there's a little lobster. Well, that's actually quite a large lobster sitting on top of his microphone. And the smart contract that was written was a naming competition for this lobster. So it's kind of a proof of concept that was written to show that it is working, and other developers can get in there and write something and execute the smart contract to be able to vote for this lobster's name. There's quite a few names that were submitted, and they are able now to vote on this particular process of naming the lobster. It's a pretty cool little thing, and kind of a commemorative moment for the Cardano ecosystem, naming this little lobster that has been appearing in so many of the videos lately. Now, overall, the hard fork event to the new Alonzo era was actually very uneventful. You'd expect something to happen, bit of fanfare, but no, not really. And an uneventful hard fork is a good event because that means there were no issues. It just smoothly sailed into the new era, and developers could actually execute smart contracts on the Cardano blockchain. Now, in the lead up to all of this in the last 6 months or so, there has been a lot of FUD, a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt within the blockchain communities in general, really, really attacking Cardano in general, which is kind of unfortunate to see, even to the point of calling it a scam. Now, we're starting to see, I'm starting to see some of this rhetoric now changing from Cardano doesn't even have smart contracts, it can't run smart contracts, And now it's changing to, where are the dApps? Smart contracts are now available on Cardano, but where are the dApps? Where are the decentralized apps that are supposed to be running on the Cardano blockchain? And, okay, fair enough. There aren't any big applications at the moment, but, Rome isn't built in a day. When the internet was invented, it didn't necessarily have beautiful websites straight away. It takes time. And developers that are building on the Cardano ecosystem are taking their time to make sure they're releasing good and beneficial products for the ecosystem. So I don't care if they take another 6 months to a year. As long as they're building things well, properly, auditing and making sure and ensuring everything is working, I don't care if it takes another 4 or 5, 6 months, or even a year to release some of these dApps. I personally just want to see more polished products being released on the Cardano ecosystem. So who is actually building on the Cardano ecosystem? Who's building on Cardano in general? Well, compared to the beginning of the year, the ecosystem has changed dramatically. I remember looking at some of these diagrams and these infographics that showed all the projects that were building on Cardano and comparing it to Ethereum and thinking, wow, we've got a long way to go. This Cardano's got a huge gap between the amount of developments that's happening on other ecosystems. But a recently updated infographic by the same people just this month, just before the Alonso upgrade, the ecosystem has incredibly flourished. It is so much bigger and so much more complex compared to what it used to be. And a lot of people are just jumping onto Cardano right now and building their new decentralized apps. And it's really, really exciting to see. If you want to see these infographics, jump onto the show notes for this podcast episode at cardanode.com.au/EP025. And I've got a couple of those infographics embedded on the page there. Just have a quick look, share it out, and let me know what you think of those. Now, a really great source to find out who or what is being built on Cardano right now is Project Catalyst. I've mentioned this many, many times before, but if you're not in the Catalyst ecosystem itself on Cardano, you may have forgotten about it and you may not be looking at it all the time. Now, Fund 6 is in operation at the moment, and there is, I believe, almost $4 million worth of ADA up for grabs for this funding round. One of the challenges, one of the subsets of this fund is the developer ecosystem. So Project Catalyst is trying to really push all of these tools so that developers can build on Cardano more easily. And this developer ecosystem challenge has over $1 million worth of ADA available and possibly allocated to various projects that are proposing and pitching in this particular challenge. So having a look at some of the apps, some of the tooling, some of the development that is happening in the ecosystem on Project Catalyst is a really good idea and indicator of how the ecosystem's going, who's building what, and what could you possibly see in the future. So it's really cool and exciting to see. A lot of the proposals in Project Catalyst right now are up for assessment. So a lot of the Catalyst assessors are going in right now and looking at all of the different projects and giving them feedback to see if they are meeting the requirements for the various challenges. Project Catalyst is a great way to get into the Cardano ecosystem and participate in Cardano's future. So please, please, please check out Project Catalyst. It's a big part of the Cardano ecosystem that anyone can participate in. Another website that I've been checking out is Building on Cardano. This website's done by a guy named Trading with Paul. He runs a YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it before, check out the links in the show notes. I've linked up to his channel there and also to the Building on Cardano website. But essentially, this site is a curated list of projects that are building on Cardano. So developers and other projects have listed their projects on there, and the team at Building on Cardano have vetted them and checked if they're a legitimate project or not. It ranges from everything from stablecoins to NFT projects, online gaming, payment gateways, wallets, all sorts of things. So the website's quite comprehensive with what it has and it has a broad range of things. So if you're wanting a different avenue, if you don't like Project Catalyst, or if you're looking for something a little bit different, building on Cardano is a really cool website to check out. Now, there is a pretty cool project that isn't on any of these infographics or these websites yet, and it's called ADA Handle. ADA Handle allows you to have a custom wallet address. So instead of giving someone that huge long string of characters as your address and saying, hey, you can send some ADA here, instead you can give them your handle. Something similar like on Twitter, how you have a Twitter handle like @AstroBoySoup, and you can give that to someone and say, hey, you can send ADA here. You can enter it into Yoroi or Daedalus as my handle address, and the ADA will be sent directly to my wallet that is assigned to that particular handle. So that's really cool. It makes that little bit of user experience when you're transferring ADA to someone just that little bit easier. You may be transferring ADA in an NFT sale or something, and you have that long address to copy in. Maybe one day we'll start seeing the actual handle of the project. So if you're getting into Coco Locos, for example, you can just go @CocoLoco in your wallet address and send ADA directly to that project address that would accept your ADA for a particular NFT. So you can do something like that in the future, and I'm really looking forward to this one. I've already reserved my own ADA handle on all 3 of my Twitter accounts. So that's how keen I am. I'm going to get 3 of them and get right in and behind this project as well. It's pretty cool. It's just those little tiny things that make the user experience in general easier for people in the ecosystem. Now, what else are we going to see? I don't know. There have been several smart contracts that have been executed on the blockchain, as I mentioned. 5 Binaries was apparently the very first ones to execute a smart contract on Cardano. I've embedded their tweet that shows their transaction on Cardano Scan on our show notes, so you can check it out and see what they were trying to do. What did that contract actually achieve? I have no idea. I've asked and they haven't quite revealed it yet. Maybe it's in the comments now. So check that out. Find out what they've done. Let me know. There are so many replies on that at the moment, and it's hard to crawl through. But if you manage to get through there and work it out, please tag me on Twitter, and we can identify exactly what that first contract that was executed Cardano did. Now, a little bit of activity is still happening on the testnet as well, and rightly so, because you should be testing your contracts before rolling out to mainnet. But the creators of SpaceBuds have announced that they've managed to do a test order or a test trade of a NFT for some ADA. So that's pretty cool. It is a milestone, and it means that a lot of these contracts will start being integrated into marketplaces like CNFT.io. So now when you're buying an NFT, you may be doing it via a smart contract, not just directly via the website that they've set up. Also, when you're minting an NFT, it'll be done via smart contract where the contract is actually embedded into the NFT itself. So that way, if the NFT is sold in the future, royalties will go back to the NFT creator as well. So they may get 1%, 2%, 10%, whatever it may be of that particular sale up to a certain point. So that's pretty exciting and pretty cool to see as well. This is the major part of the NFT ecosystem. Now, so many of these projects were minting NFTs directly on the Cardano blockchain, and it's really cool. It's you don't need smart contracts. So now that these smart contracts are coming into play, we will see more and more projects minting via smart contracts. That way, the projects have royalties behind all of these NFTs. I was listening to a Twitter Spaces event today, and Alexander, the creator of unsigs or unsigned algorithms, was talking about how his projects will have absolutely no buy-in price for the initial sale. That is, at the moment, when you're buying an NFT, they'll have these tiered prices. So, the first comers will pay 10 ADA, the next will pay 20 ADA, and et cetera, et cetera. So it goes up as the amount of tokens are being sold, the NFTs are being sold, and the amount of ADA that needs to be paid will increase over time. Now, Alex was saying that with his new projects, he'll mint everything behind a smart contract for essentially free. So the only price that you need to pay for is that transaction fee of the 0.17 ADA, which will just pay for the minting process. So instead of paying for that initial NFT, he would get royalties instead from the smart contracts when these NFTs are being sold on secondary marketplaces. So that's really cool. So that means people can get into NFTs, collect these really cool rare NFTs from the creators for almost nothing. Very, very low fees, extremely low fees compared to Ethereum at the moment, where I saw a $26,000 gas fee for a transaction and it failed, which means if it fails, they lose that ETH as well. Think about that. But anyway, the new era would see all these NFTs being released for nothing, only that transaction fee, and then people selling them on secondary marketplaces for 200, 300, 400 ADA afterwards, and Alex getting a slight cut in royalties, like 1%, maybe 10%, and that will go to him, and the rest will go to the seller that got in and excited on the project really early. So that is an amazing concept to see in play as soon as smart contracts come out. So people will be buying it for next to nothing, seeing value in it, seeing something being sought after, then selling in the secondary marketplaces. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know when it will happen. I guess people are still writing the smart contracts for that or refining them at least. I know that the SpaceBuds team are working busily in the background to get everything working on their own website with these smart contracts. So we'll see when that gets released. I'm eagerly waiting to see, and I'll let you all know as soon as it is released as well. All right, so that's it for the news for this week and all the updates around smart contracts and developing on Cardano. Now, let's get into this interview with Chris Swenor from Reach. We talk about a whole bunch of things with this programming language that he started up with his co-founder, Jay, who is a programming language genius. So he's been working in this space, done his PhD in developing programming languages and the compilers that are needed for this Reach platform to be able to compile a script-based language into various blockchain codes, including being able to deploy on Ethereum, Argrand, and hopefully Cardano as well. All right, let's get into this interview. I am blessed to have so many of the smartest people in the blockchain industry join me on this podcast, and Chris Swenor is absolutely no exception to that. Chris is the CEO and co-founder of Reach Platform, a high-level programming language that you can use to develop decentralized applications, or dApps. It allows developers to easily write smart contracts across multiple different chains, which is absolutely amazing. He's a technologist resident at Harvard Business School, which is also quite amazing, coaching students for their startups, and also a former founder of the Alacris protocol. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right.
Alacris, yes.
Yeah. And he also has a beard that rivals any Viking. So thank you, Chris, for joining me on the podcast.
It's purely my pleasure. You do a great job and love to chat with you about things.
All right. So let's get into a little bit about your background first. It sounds quite deep in the blockchain space. How did you get into blockchain in general, and why now Cardano?
Sure. So getting into blockchain, that was a long time ago. It's actually a fun story. Back in 2013, one of my friends was trying to be a jerk to me. I bought him a burrito and I think it's seltzer water for lunch. I was like, "Hey, you need to pay me back." And he paid me back in this thing called Bitcoin, just as a joke. He's like, "What do you mean? That has value. I paid you back." And that was back in like 2013. And by the way, I still probably once every few months, I send him the receipt of that payment to show him how much money he paid me for those things, because it kind of backfired on him. But it also got me interested in blockchain. I wasn't really in love with Bitcoin at the time. I know the Bitcoin maxes out there are going to yell at me, but I didn't really truly see the vision back then. I thought it was neat. I thought it was cool. I didn't go all in at that point. But when I started hearing about Ethereum and the world computer, that's when it really clicked. The idea that this is not just a ledger of transactions, but it could be used as a state machine, a trustless state machine. And that is when I went, wow, this is going to be amazing. So back in 2016, I believe, is when I was running a services company that was focusing on bringing developers or companies from startup to growth stage. I started putting my developers, when they were time off, into like building things and testing things out and trying things out, because I wanted to jump in. And then eventually nothing really clicked. And then one of my friends at the time came up to me and said, "Hey, he wasn't actually part of my current company. He's like, hey, I have a way to scale blockchain." And he was, you guys actually might know him. He's Francois. He's one of the founders of the Glow project, I believe it is. So he came to me and said, "Hey, I have this idea on how to scale blockchain." And I was like, I've been waiting for the reason to jump in. So I sold off all of the pieces of my company and jumped in with both feet, and we founded Alacrus. And at that point, we were building up a layer 2 scaling solution. And this is when I started paying attention to Cardano as well, because I really liked Ethereum. Ethereum is great for what it did, but the idea of rethinking how blockchain works in the slow way, in the academic way, was intriguing to me. So we started reaching out to IOHK, which was called back then. And we both, actually, Francois and I, were both speakers at the original IOHK Fest down in Miami.
Wow. Okay.
Talking about Alacrus and how it could help Cardano. Grew up Alacrus a little bit. One of the things that we really found out or discovered that scaling is a problem, but scaling isn't today's problem. And while thinking of it that way, we had to ask the question, like, well, what is today's problem then? If we fix scaling, and every developer in the world that is using blockchain is using the scaling solution, it's not enough to keep the lights on. There's not enough developers in the world to really generate revenue in fixing this problem. So I just said at that point, the big problem is bringing all of the developers in the world, because if the problem with scaling is there's not enough developers use it, well, I guess the problem then is that we need to get more developers using blockchain. So this is when I brought in Jay, my current co-founder, to Alacrus, and to solve this problem, because he's a world-renowned programming language researcher, has focuses on formal verification and very high-level math things. And he's one of the maintainers of a programming language called Racket. So he's quite well known in the space. So we started building a solution for Alacrus to make it easier for developers to develop on top of Alacrus. Francois and I ended up having a disagreement with the direction of the company. So what I decided to do is to split off and focus on just the developer acquisition piece. Like, how do we get more developers, and kind of push the actual scaling thing away? And Jay came with me to bring all of the knowledge that he did with Alacrus to focus on reach. And that's where reach started. With the mission that we're going, like, what I like to say is when you ask somebody on the street to describe blockchain in 5 years, what they're going to describe is reach, because reach will be the lens that blockchain is viewed at through the entire world. Because just like right now, if you ask somebody to describe the internet, a lot of people describe Google or they describe the browser because that is what they see, but that's not what the internet is. So we've been very successful so far. Reach, we launched it. We started the company 2 years ago this month, and we released our product to the world about a year ago. And since then, we've been growing week over week. And this was actually back then during the downturn, where it wasn't so excited, but we've been growing about week over week at about 10 to 20% user increase every single week. And this is not just people part of our community. This is developers literally building Reach applications.
So this is developers building stuff on Ethereum at the moment and moving from just building straight on Solidity and looking at the Reach language and working out how to build dApps off that way. Is that correct?
So no, we decided to focus purely on the new developer, the people that are not already in the blockchain space, because what I like to say is that those developers have sunk cost fallacy. They have spent the last 3 years in learning how to do something the very hard way, and trying to convince them that their last 3 years was a waste is a hurdle we don't need to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So we go after the new developers that are coming into space that are interested in blockchain. And the great thing, so our product has 3 main pillars of why it's very good. Number one, it's infinitely easier to build. I mean, we're in the process right now of building a DEX, and we're going to hopefully launch in testnet by the end of this month. It's an AMM DEX, and the pool code is around, I think, 270 lines of code. Compare that to the pool code of just regular, Uniswap V2. You're looking at thousands of lines of code. So, like I said, it's an exponentially easier. And one of the questions you probably ask later is, how is that possible? But you can ask me that later.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just trying to. So this is a DEX that's going to be launched on Cardano testnet.
No, not yet, because we're not connected to Cardano. That's why we're getting but yeah, we'll talk about that. But this, like I said, it would be once we're actually fully integrated. Yes, it would be.
Okay.
So the second pillar is safety, because blockchain is immutable. You make a mistake with your code, somebody takes advantage of it, you lose everything. So our code is every single time you compile, it mathematically guarantees through formal verification that your code will do exactly as you expect, which is extremely exciting, because usually this takes hundreds of thousands of dollars and many man hours to build formal proof or formal spec that your code will do what you want. And Reach does this through the compilation process. And then the final pillar is the blockchain agnostic part of it that you spoke earlier, is the ability to change a configuration and launch on a different blockchain. Originally, our hypothesis was, this will allow developers to launch on multiple blockchains. What we're finding is that's not really true. Developers will pick a chain that they really love, and they will launch it on that one chain. I believe that they will eventually launch a product on multiple chains, but to start off, they pick one chain because they want to focus on that one community and go. But what we have found is that because of the blockchain agnostic part of it, is that we have actually built a non-toxic community of blockchain developers. Because when any developer on any chain has the ability to help any developer on any chain without even asking what chain they're building on. So you asked me, where are people building? And so this is the long explanation of me saying I don't know. Is because if you look in our community, nobody talks about Ethereum or Algorand or Conflux or any of the chains that we build on. They just talk about, I have this issue with Reach. How do I solve this? And another person jumps in and solves it without even knowing where they're launching.
A non-toxic developer community. Wow, that sounds like utopia to me.
I mean, it's great.
Having come from the CMS space, where the CMS wars raged on for many years of competing one CMS against another, it's kind of nice to hear that's slightly different. So what type of developer are you actually aiming for then? I know the language is very similar to JavaScript. So are you looking for a front end type of developers that are that know JavaScript or know what type of developers are you aiming at?
We're aiming at the traditional developer, the common developer, to not say like not to make it sound like a bad thing, but the developer that is building the world. Because if you look at it, is that the large number of developers in the world are building web applications. They're building, for the front end and the back end. There's not many developers that are, got their PhD in mathematics. They're building embedded systems and going all like there's very few developers that know how to build a state machine. We don't. I mean, those aren't our targets. I mean, they'll come over to us anyway because we can get things done much faster, much easier than the way that they're used to. But the developer we're going after is your full stack developer, is your mobile developer, is your developer that is the one that is actually helping the world go around.
Right, gotcha. So I run a web development company, and it's been a long time since.
So you,
yeah, precisely. It's been a long time since I actually developed any code myself. The team does all that, but they're building stuff in React. We've gone through Vue, JS, and all that. So it's basically them that will be able to pick this up and build dApps
right.
off Reach.
So
yeah,
the fun thing is that what Reach has done is made blockchain the easy part again. So this DEX that we're building right now, one developer that never knew what blockchain was beforehand built the actual entire blockchain portion of this in 1.5 months. One developer never actually experienced blockchain development before has built the entire blockchain portion of the DEX in 1.5 months. The interface that will be actually just the traditional web development, we have 3 developers working on it, and it's going to take them 2 months of work to actually build just the interface. And this has nothing to do with blockchain. This is just purely, HTML, CSS, and wrangling React.
Right. Okay. This is really interesting and actually really exciting. It's like I know the developers that are building on Cardano at the moment, they're taking months. And so they should be, going through all the development for their DEXs that they're building. And, it's in Haskell, in Plutus. It does take a long time to get everything working. And there are a lot of engineering and development challenges to actually solve. So how many people and projects are building on Reach at the moment? So you mentioned that, there's quite a few, the development community is growing, but what kind of numbers are there? And what kind of exposure could the Cardano community see once this integration happens?
I haven't ran the numbers yet this morning, but we have, I think yesterday we were at 2,350 developers that have actually built applications on Reach, unique developers.
Whoa, okay.
So a lot, and. But that's since, that's over the last year. So they're not all still developing things full time. We average around, I believe last month, I think we hit around 600 active developers. I'm not sure what this month's list, but I'm assuming it's going to be more. So it's, a large group that are actively building on Reach. And what an active developer to me is somebody that has made a commit in Reach. I believe it's at least 4 times in a month. So throughout the month, there's 4 different commits. And that's what to me is what an active developer is, to be specific.
Yeah.
Now, the next question somebody's going to ask is, are they just building Hello World or are they building DEXs? And the answer is yes. And the answer is yes, and I don't know, because we're not Big Brother. We don't monitor. We don't record exactly the application compiled because this is our own thing. We just record that things have been compiled by unique users. But I do know there's 2 DEXs. There is at least 1 stablecoin. There's now, I believe, 2 lending protocols. There is 2 marketplaces, 2 NFT marketplaces,
yep.
And by actual teams and not like individuals. So that's what I can think of off the top of my head. And it's a very, very awesome community.
All right. Well, definitely very active. That's for sure. I was trying to gauge those numbers just from looking at the Discord. You don't get that by looking at the Discord channel and what people are talking about. But wow, that's quite impressive. So how are you going to integrate Reach with Cardano then?
By having the best team in the entire world is how we're going to do it. So me, I'm the CEO. Just said I keep the lights on. I have these big dreams of taking over the world. That's my job. We have amazing, experienced developers, researchers, engineers that have been building compilers their entire life. So how Reach works is that it's built on it's a compiler that has many, many different layers. And the truth is like the top, I believe, 3/4, maybe even more, maybe even more than 3/4 of the entire compiler stack has nothing to do with individual blockchains. It has what we do is we take the Reach language and send it through multiple layers to we use this thing called endpoint projection. That Jay was one of the first researchers to actually he did his dissertation on it or something like that sort of a long time ago. But it's the ability to take a single spec and slice it into many pieces to work on a distributed system. And that's exactly how blockchain works. And actually, Cardano is really leaning heavy into that, and with how Plutus is going to actually run it with the Plutus core and the Plutus, I think, app layer, right? Is that what it's called? And how it's multiple different pieces, but they're all pieces of the same application. And Reach takes a single spec and automatically cuts that up for you to be able to run the application. So you don't need to worry about having all of those moving pieces in your head and making sure that they're all correct. And the best part about it is that one of the steps of the actual compilation is to run it through Z3 or run the generated specs through Z3 to mathematically guarantee that your code will do exactly as you expect and you didn't make any single mistakes.
Wow. Okay. It's Jay's put in a lot of thought into this. It sounds way more complicated than I can comprehend, and it's way past my
15 years.
Yeah.
Like this is not like a 2-year long project. Like this is one of those serendipitous moments that Jay's like pretty much all of Jay's research when blockchain was invented, it like all of his research applies to like building awesome blockchain applications.
Yes, indeed. Very serendipitous timing. Wow. Okay. So all that mathematical verification through that process, I guess that's what secures the code and makes sure and guarantees that it's formally verified and does what it's supposed to do. Now, in terms of auditing that code, I know a lot of the developers at the moment in the Cardano ecosystem are going through audits and have to audit their code. How does auditing work on Reach then? And how does that process work?
Depends on when you ask that question in the actual life cycle of an integration. In the short term, like right after we actually finish the full integration, what applications do is they just hand over the core code, the Plutus code, and that Reach generates and have that audited. So that's the exact same process as what you have today. So you don't have to actually trust the Reach stack. Eventually, what happens is that we partner with the foundation of the network, and they pay for a large array of audits that Reach outputs that covers many of the different use cases of blockchain developments. And if all of those audits pass, now you can actually trust Reach to output correctly. Gotcha. Now audits can actually happen on the Reach language, and they become much faster. They become much more objective rather than subjective, because right now when you get an audit, it's a prose letter that says, I'm really smart and I looked at your code and you're good to go. Yeah. But with a Reach audit, what it would be is, I'm really smart. I looked at your Reach code. I saw that there was actually issues. I dropped in assertions, single line assertions into your code and reran it, and there's an error or it ran fine. Best part about this is now those assertions are always there. And every single time you modify your code and recompile, it will recheck those assertions that those auditors do. So the ability to receive future benefit from audits is something that Reach provides that currently audits don't provide.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. How can people get into developing on Reach? I noticed there's a little bit of documentation on the site, not little, but quite a lot. Are there tutorials? Are there video tutorials? Is there like a training program or anything? How can people get into learning more about Reach?
Yeah, so we are, yes, we have lots of documentation. I'm actually very proud of the what Jay did and what the team's done with the documentation, because it's actually very thorough. We have a tutorial, which is bottom up training. So it teaches you every single line on what it means and how it works. And then we have top down training that is, you can kind of think of it as like homework, where we provide a challenge, and then we like check your work along the way to give you like that boost confidence. And then we have reference documents that's every single thing that Reach can do. There's detailed explanation of what it can do. If you're this is the reference documents are to when you're like, oh, how do you do this one thing in Reach? And you can go right to it and it's like, oh, this is how you do it. So we have our documentation is really good, and we're in the process over the next month or so completely revamping our documentation to put a good, nice look in it, better navigation, and we are expanding. We're growing what we call the learning team quite a bit. We do have external community members that have built many different tutorials and videos. One community member actually wrote an entire textbook in Turkish. So if there's any Turkish community members that are listening to this and want to Reach, there's a real physical textbook on Reach. There's in the next couple months, we're going to have a very prominent educator on YouTube is in the process right now of creating a 10 video series on how to actually build on Reach. And I'm really excited about that. She's really awesome.
That's really cool.
Lots of stuff, I think, is the answer. Yeah. And then of course, just so people know, it's docs.reach.sh is the link to go to start going.
Cool. Fantastic. I'll put those links in the show notes as well. Now, you guys are also going through Project Catalyst at the moment, and you've submitted a proposal under the Developer Ecosystem Challenge. And I believe there's about, there is 1,005,000 USD up for that particular challenge. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're proposing here for the Cardano ecosystem?
Yeah, so I am proposing the first step of the integration process. The first step is the building proof of concept, and this isn't the full integration. So once this project is done, I just want to be very clear: developers are going to be able to jump in and start converting their over to Reach, because it takes a lot of time and effort, as you can understand, to actually do the full integration. But this is the first step. What the outcome of it is that we will take our first basic application. It's pretty much our Hello World. It's our overview app that is the ability to, I believe, to actually sell information on the blockchain. And we will build the connector to take that application, that specific application, and compile it out and to bring it down to Plutus, and then stand up a node and simulate that it actually works, to show that Reach can do what we say that we're going to do. And that's our first step.
Yeah. So great. Fantastic. And it's a really good way to get into the Cardano ecosystem as well. It's the Catalyst project has multiple levels. One is, you get some funding and you can build whatever you want to build, but also the marketing reach and the community engagement, which is so huge in the Cardano ecosystem, where you're actually exposing yourself to developers and community members, so that people really get to know the project, get behind your project as well, and hopefully find more developers that will be building on Reach. So that's absolutely fantastic and amazing.
Like I told you earlier, I've been part of the Cardano community for a long time now. I mean, since the very first IOHK Fest. So, been following along. Really love the community, and I really hope that this proposal is accepted by the community, because we'd love to be officially part of the community as a company.
Well, it seems to be getting quite a lot of applause. I don't know what they call it in idea scale, but lots of little hand claps for this particular project. So I encourage anyone that's listening to this to check out the Project Catalyst proposal. under the developer ecosystem. And I'll put, again, the links to that in the show notes. So how many people are on the Reach team? I noticed when when researching Reach, you were hiring, and not just one position, but multiple, lots of different positions for Reach. How many people on the team? How many people are building this crazy platform?
A lot.
Yeah,
I think we're up to, I believe, between 20 and 25. We have a lot of actually people haven't started yet. I mean, we've hired so many over the past 2-3 months, and we're still hiring more. But between 20 and 25, I believe the current count is.
Yeah. The other thing I don't understand is the business model of Reach. How is the company making money? You're developing this beautiful language that will allow all these full stack developers to come in and do their thing and build dApps. Where does the money come in to actually fund the business?
Yeah. So in the short term, it is an endowment model where every chain that we connect to, the foundation itself provides a good chunk of coins that we lock up and we hold. And the idea is that because we are part of the ecosystem, we're incentivized to get more users to actually grow the system. So by us holding those coins, they actually get larger. And we do that for every chain that we're connected to so far. Officially, and that is one way. The other, and that way it makes Reach, the actual language, free for developers for as long as they want to use it, and it's actually just a great system that I've found so far. The next step is that we will be releasing an enterprise version of Reach that adds extra safety, extra functionality that doesn't actually be part of the core product. And these are features that are used for much more intense, a lot more TVL on a contract, that you need the extra guarantees that's to make sure everything is wrong or everything is right and nothing is wrong. So we'll be providing those services on the enterprise model. We also have a plans to grow out our own products on Reach itself. This is launching our own DEX is one of the things, and it's kind of like the way that I kind of describe this is sort of like what Microsoft did with their Microsoft Office suite. We are going to have a Reach DeFi suite where all of the best DeFi applications, a AMM, a stable coin, a lending platform will all be under the DeFi suite. So that's kind of like my mindset there. And then we also have our next step of revenue generation models that we don't need to get into now, but it's once we take over the world and all developers are using Reach, there are other revenue models that we can use.
Right, fantastic. It's good to know because it's developers will potentially jump ship for whatever they're learning at the moment and adopt Reach, but it's good to know that it will be around for a long period of time. You don't want to just see it develop over the next 2-3 years and then the core developers leave or something because there's no money or funding. So that's kind of crucial. Kind of good to know that there's a solid foundation there.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we've raised money already. I believe we've raised almost $13.5 million in our seed round. So there's no worry about the developers going away anytime soon. And the revenue that we've actually generated from the existing chains that we connect to really already keep the lights on. So there's no worry that we'll go away, and we will be here in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And we will be the way that everybody in the world is building blockchain applications. Yeah.
Well, when you can create a simple application in minimal lines of code, how many lines of code did you say that DEX was?
I believe the pool portion of it, which is the major portion of it, is 270.
Yeah, 270.
I think like 274, if I want to be exact.
Yeah, and I did read over the example one. I can't remember which one it was now off the top of my head. Oh, yeah, the rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah,
that's so simple, so basic, very easy to read and follow. It's by far probably the easiest blockchain language that I've come across. It's like, is that it?
The funny thing is,
seriously?
the funny thing is like, so rock, paper, scissors, the reason why we picked rock, paper, scissors as the initial tutorial is because everybody knows how to play rock, paper, scissors. So we don't need to teach people new rules of the game. We can just focus on the blockchain aspects of it. But the truth is that rock, paper, scissors is actually a very complicated blockchain application, because I believe there's, I think like 8 different states along one single game of rock, paper, scissors with multiple interactions that do different things, that each state has a timeout of what happens when the other person doesn't do it. Doing this by hand in say Plutus or Teal or Solidity is a nightmare, because to handle all of those states and keep them all in actually in your mind it's very difficult to do in the right way.
Wow. Okay. I don't think I'll even attempt it in Plutus. I'm not going to even try. But yeah, definitely in Reach, it looks so easy and so straightforward. So I am going to attempt it and give it a go. See what I can
Please do.
Spit out. All right. So what are some reference links? We heard reach.sh to get to the main site. Anywhere else where the community and audience should be going to?
Yeah, so docs.reach.sh is our documentation, where our Discord community is quite active. People helping people all the time. You can find the link. I'm sure you'll probably paste the link, but you can also go to reach.sh and there's a link to our Discord community there. But our YouTube channel, we have a podcast that's called Better on Blockchain. That's we've now have four episodes, and the point of that podcast is Jay and I ask the question of, could blockchain make X industry better? And we go through different industries and we just open talk. It's about how so far we've done the office suite, which was a fun one to do. Social networks and rideshare are the 3 that we've done so far. And we're going to continue to go and find new industries and just answer in a very non-chill, open developers, product people talking about how blockchain could revolutionize this industry.
All right. Absolutely brilliant. Again, I'll put all those links in the show notes so everyone can find them. My God, Chris, so big, huge thank you for joining me on the podcast and sharing your knowledge and everything about Reach. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you on this podcast.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for asking different questions. I do these quite often, and I really appreciate that you're dug into different things I don't really usually talk about.
So make sure you check out all the links for this. Check out the Project Catalyst. Check out the reach.sh website as well. I'll put all the links to this in the show notes so that you can easily find them. That's at cardano.com.au/EP025. Find out what they're doing, support the project. I think it's really cool. If you can write a DEX, take it from those thousands of lines of code and trim it down to 270 or so lines of code, hey, that's absolutely amazing. And I'd love to see this proof of concept get into the Cardano ecosystem so people can start building more and getting and building really cool projects. So that's what I really want to see. Now, in the next week's episode, I'll be talking about NFTs. I've been crowdsourcing all of these really cool NFT projects that are out there, looking at some of the analytics, some of the stats, some of the traffic transactions that have been occurring on the Cardano blockchain from all these NFTs. And the space is absolutely exploding. I've got a massive list of things, and I'll be going through all of these projects with Martina. Martina's going to join me on the show, and we are going to go through a whole bunch of reactions as I take her through some of these projects. She's working on her own thing, and I've shown her 1 or 2 little projects on the side, but she hasn't seen the depth of these projects. I think I've got a list of about 20 here ready to go, and we'll just go through them. We'll do it on YouTube so I can get the reactions, and I'll trim it down for the audio podcast and pull out some highlights for the show. But that's what we're doing next week. I also have an interview with the team from Coco Loco community. So this is a little bit different because the Coco Loco project was launched by Dan from the Crypto Recruiter YouTube channel, but the community has taken over the project. it's been hijacked or whatever's happened. I don't know. I still don't know what's happened. And these guys are coming onto the podcast to tell me all about what has happened and where the project is going now. It's turning into a decentralized autonomous community. That's what it sounds like. So I'm pretty excited to have them on the podcast to talk a little bit more about that as well. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to it so you don't miss that particular episode. It's going to be quite interesting. If you really enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving us that lovely 5-star rating and review. Like I always say, it really helps with the discoverability of the podcast so that other people can discover it, listen to it, enjoy it, digest it, whatever it might be. Now, before I take off, I am going to read a couple of reviews. Now, this was my very first 1-star rating and review, and everyone's entitled to an opinion, so that's totally cool. So it's titled Needles in Eyes. Listening to this guy is truly painful, monotone, emotionless voice. Speaks like he's talking to a child. Cool. All right. Point taken. I will try and be a little bit more animated and try and be a little bit more emotional. It's probably that Asian upbringing that has beaten all emotion out of me, and that's just how I ended up. It's not unfortunate, isn't it? Let me read some more here. So this one's from the Netherlands, actually. Great podcast to get to know Cardano. This podcast is my first introduction to Cardano. I started at number 1 and I still have to catch up to the latest episode. It provides me with so much essential information in a really easy to understand way that I wonder how I would do without. Cool. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for that 5-star rating review. I've got another one here from Sweden, actually. Oh, hang on. It's actually in Swedish. Hang on. Just give me 1 second. And thank you, Google Translate. All right, here we go. Very good pod about the next generation of crypto. There is something about the Australian dialect that makes everything easy to understand. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's how we slur our words. Our ochre Australian accent is really grinding to a lot of people. Check back at that first 1-star rating and review. But no, seriously, thank you so much for that 5-star rating and review, and also in Swedish. Thankfully, Google Translate helps there, and I can actually see and read what's going on. Now, I'll just read out one more. There's a bit of a backlog here, so I'll just read this one more here. It's all about Cardano, news, insights, and much more. Thanks for having all the information in one place. And that was from someone in Germany as well. So a lot of these rating and reviews from all around the world. There is a large skew of Australian reviews, but that's okay. That's where I'm from. So that's kind of expected. But all these really cool reviews from all around the world, it's really heartwarming to see. And, feedback, it's like I said, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and a 1-star review is totally fine. Except for the fact that it's now bringing down the average for this podcast. So the average is now at 4.81. So if you haven't given me a review yet and you'd like to give me a positive one, please jump onto that Apple Podcast Network and give me that review so we can boost this thing back up and get the rankings better and the ratings better for this particular podcast. So I'd really appreciate that. Okay. So that's it for this podcast episode. Make sure you subscribe so you can check into that NFT special coming up next week. I'm looking forward to recording that one. And it's just before the Cardano Summit as well. So hopefully I can squeeze this all in and make it happen before I go absolutely crazy organizing the Cardano Summit here in Brisbane. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you are in Australia and you can get to Brisbane, please subscribe on the meetup page. I'll put a link in the show notes as well, or you can search for it on meetup.com. You should be able to find it. It's the official one under the Cardano Foundation badge. So you'll be able to find it there. Okay, that's it for me. Now, like I always say, please keep your seed phrases safe and secure. Keep them backed up. Don't let anyone see them. All right, bye.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debating. IOHK, Emergo, we're not affiliated, not Cardano Foundation. We just gotta say it. A show that you can learn and it's for your entertainment. Yeah, you gotta check it. Don't wanna be missing that. You were tuned in to the Learn Cardano podcast. Yeah, giving insight. Ain't another show like this when it come to crypto. Invest at your own risk. Might not be for everyone, but who it is for, we keep giving you some info and plenty more. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Keep it locked right here. Let's go.